What's up, TBS crew? It's your boy Steph back with another reaction. This time we have Unit 522. 3 creepy stories submitted by subscribers based on true events. Number 7, featuring my guy, Nightmare Files, uploaded July 27, 2019. Now, y'all already know, down in the description will be links to Unit 522's channel, to Nightmare Files' channel, to this original video, and to all of my social medias. Get at your boy and see the personal life that I don't upload to YouTube. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's see what they finna get into. I love when my favorite, horror content creators collab with one another.
I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. My family moved up there when I was about 6 months old. I was originally born in a small town called Mount Clemens. It's the same town that Dean Cain from The Adventures of Lewis and Clark was born in. I suppose that's my biggest claim to fame. Michigan is quite a unique state, the way it's positioned on the northern border of the U.S. and the southern border of Canada. Those of us that are born in Michigan usually stay here, and no one ever travels to my neck of the woods. There's no real way to just pass by, and we're landlocked by the Great Lakes, if that makes sense.
Right.
With the exception of the large cities, the state is mostly covered by woodlands. I have a few strange experiences living in the Upper Peninsula, but none stranger than the one I'm about to tell. We lived on top of a hill, about a 30-minute drive to the nearest town. Our next-door neighbors were a good 10 miles away. It was quiet. Few, if any, vehicles ever came by the house. I developed a strange fear of vehicles coming up the hill. It seemed like you could hear them for miles. I mean, of course, there were others who lived on our road, but this wasn't a place for outsiders to take shortcuts. We didn't even have names for our roads. They were all designated by numbers. When I got older,
Wow.
I wasn't too excited or afraid when vehicles would pass by. During the day, I knew most of the cars and trucks that our distant neighbors drove. When night came, well, that was a different story. I could see the headlights cutting through my bedroom window and light up my walls like some kind of ominous paint. It's a hard feeling to describe, but in my young mind, I felt that no one had any business driving down such a remote road at any point after dark. At the time, I was about 13. The year was 1996. Our family, amazingly, had just acquired internet. Anyone that's in their mid to late 30s knows how insane this time was. For whatever reason, at this time, my dad installed a glass sliding door on the wall near where the computer was. The computer used to be the hub of our home at the time. Unlike nowadays where every family member has their own computer, plus a billion other gadgets in their pocket.
Hey.
So having the sliding door open up to the scenery of the countryside from the computer desk was actually pretty nice. I appreciated it for about 2 days, before one of the strangest things I've ever seen occurred. I was up late on a Saturday night on the computer, like usual. In those days, I was probably messing around in the Yahoo chat rooms, or maybe playing Myst. Then I heard it. I mostly felt it at first. The low rumbling of a truck engine, creeping slowly down the main road. The truck passed by our house, and then stopped. The long-forgotten fear I mentioned earlier came roaring back like a freight train. Nothing good would come from a suspicious truck driving down our road at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Nah.
What I saw next has burned itself inside my head. I can still recall it as clear as day. The truck screeched to a stop. A man flung open the passenger side door and quickly hustled over to the driver's side. This was all taking place too far away for me to give a really good physical description, but I could tell the passenger was much larger than the driver. He wore some kind of puffy vest, jeans, and one of those trucker-style caps. He grabbed the driver and dragged him out of the truck, then slammed him against the tailgate.
Ooh.
He seemed to be shouting orders at the driver, motioning him to open the tailgate. When he did, I saw the driver turn to the bigger guy, as if he was hesitating out of fear. Even at a distance, I could see this clearly. The driver was unnerved, and his partner forcefully handed him a shovel. The passenger then pointed to a spot on the side of the road behind the truck. The panicked driver began to frantically dig where the passenger had pointed to. He dug for about 3 to 4 minutes, paused, then looked at the driver, and the two exchanged some words that I couldn't quite make out. The passenger then dragged something out of the bed of the truck. I can only describe it as a closed sleeping bag.
A body.
With a body still inside.
Yeah.
The passenger walked over to the shallow grave and tossed it in. The two men then made a poor attempt of covering the hole before they sped off. You may be asking, well, did you go out and see what they buried? And the answer is surely what you would expect.
No.
Of course I did.
Oh my God.
And that's the creepiest part of all. When I went out to the road the next morning,
Really?
the hole was empty.
Ooh.
I knew what I saw. There was even the tire tracks from the night before. But whatever they threw into that hole was gone. I looked to the opposite side of the burial and was horrified to see footprints in the dirt leading straight into the forest. I had no idea what to make of it. I repressed this memory for so long and just wanted to pretend that it never happened. Aside from a few close friends, I've never told anyone about this. I believe that bag they threw into the ground had someone in it, and they thought that person was dead. However, based on what I saw the next morning, they were wrong.
Right.
You can chalk this all up to teenage imagination if you like,
What?
but I stand by what I say. There are some things in this world that you'll never be able to explain, and even if you could, chances are you wouldn't care much for the answer.
You shouldn't even want to know the answer.
This happened about 6 years ago in the early hours of my 20th birthday.
Hey.
At the time,
NF.
I had been working as a carpet cleaner. It's also important to note that I am a 6-foot male, and at the time, weighed about 210 pounds. By nature, I'm an extremely cautious individual. Also,
Good.
in the particular area that I worked in, there was a lot of gang activity at the time. It was about 6 p.m. when I got a call from one of the head carpet cleaning techs. He explained that he couldn't do the late job he was scheduled for, which was at 11 p.m., because his pregnant wife might have been going into labor, and he had to get to the hospital. Seeing as I was broke, I told him I would cover for him. It wasn't until around 2 a.m. that me and my partner got finished with the job. We made it back to our shop at around 2:15 a.m., got the truck ready for the other guys who would be taking it out in a few hours, and headed home around 2:45 a.m. I worked for nearly 20 hours straight at this point and had a 45-minute drive home.
Jesus Christ.
I lived out in the middle of nowhere. Being exhausted and barely able to keep my eyes open, I decided to stop at a gas station and grab an energy drink. When I pulled in, I noticed a black Buick sitting in the far corner of the gas station parking lot.
Buick.
I didn't think much of it. Perhaps it was the attendant's car.
Keep your eyes on it.
I went in, got my drink, and left. After about 5 minutes of being back on the road, I had a gut feeling that something was wrong. I saw a pair of headlights in the distance gaining on me. Deciding that I needed to confirm my suspicion before taking any drastic measures, I continued my drive home while keeping an eye on the headlights in the rearview mirror.
Don't go straight to your house.
I was about 2 miles from home and still being tailed by the headlights. That's when I decided to take a detour.
Good.
After about 10 minutes of maneuvering on back roads, I knew that things were getting serious as the headlights followed me every which way. My little 4-cylinder Saturn was slow to get away. Now fearing for my life, I knew I had to try to take control of the situation, as well as keep from leading my pursuers to my home, where my sister and her 2-month-old son were staying at the time. At the next stop sign, I put my car in park, placed my 12-inch military-grade knife up my jacket sleeve, and grabbed the pistol I keep in my car for protection.
My man.
I prayed I would not have to use them, and then stepped out of the car. As I did, the car that had been following me came to a screeching halt, and 4 men exited the vehicle.
Ooh.
It was then that I recognized it was the same black Buick from the gas station. As the men climbed out, the moonlight revealed that one of them was carrying a large chain, and the others were armed with a baseball bat, a tire iron, and the one who I assumed was their leader had an axe.
Ooh, damn.
Seeing this, and making sure to keep my pistol out of the light, I asked, "Is there a problem?" One of the men responded, "You about to die, boy." It was at this moment
He was
that I
black.
realized this was some kind of gang initiation. I dropped a knife from my sleeve, gripping it in my left hand, while backing behind my open car door, trying to at least limit the direction they could attack me from. Seeing the knife and my attempt to put something between me and them, they laughed, and one said to the others, "This motherfucker think he's gonna beat us with a little knife."
Start shooting.
As they approached, I pulled the gun out and fired a warning shot
My
at the
man.
leader's feet.
My man.
The hardcore badasses quickly turned into little scared rabbits and were now hightailing it out of there. I yelled after them, "You idiots picked the wrong guy to mess with. Now get the hell out of here before I put a bullet in your ass." They all fumbled back into the car and hauled ass.
I like
As
that.
they sped away,
Oh, that.
I was able to get the plate number
Good.
and called the police.
Good.
After getting off the phone with the dispatcher, I got back into my car. I made it home around 4 a.m. and passed out. When I woke up a few hours later, I called the police station to see if they had any leads. It turns out that the car was stolen
Of course.
and they were unable to locate it. As far as I know, the car has never been found and the four hoodlums were never caught.
Instead of getting a warning shot, you should have popped one of them. Fuck you,
My
man.
dad owned a small house for a brief amount of time. This particular house was not one that he lived in. He bought the place to renovate and resell it for profit. This house was on a dead-end street in the woods. It was a very private location, but the road had a history of people dumping things off and abandoning stolen vehicles.
Wow.
There was only 2 houses on the street. This house was often used by drifters. A neighbor told us that it was a drug house for a long time.
Of course.
A few months after my dad bought the house,
It's all bad.
he called me to ask if I would meet him there to help him unload some materials. I arrived about 10 minutes before he did and noticed that there was a car in front of the house. I decided to go investigate to see if there was anyone in the car. The car had a license plate on it, and I saw clothing piled up in the back seat. As I was walking around the car, I started to have this uneasy feeling that I wasn't alone. I then heard someone moving around in the woods near the house. I went and stood at the edge of the woods for several minutes, watching and waiting. My dad arrived a few minutes later with his trailer. He got out of his truck and walked over to the car. I told him I had a feeling that whoever owned it was still close by, and that I heard someone walking around in the woods before he got there. He looked over to the car, just like I did. Then we both decided to walk through the woods to see if we can find someone. As we were walking,
Better have a
I
gun.
got the feeling that we were being watched by someone.
You are.
I remember telling my dad how creepy it would be if we actually found a dead body. He said that he had the same strange feeling that we weren't alone.
A dead body can't
The
watch
pathway
you.
we were on came to a dead end, so we turned back. The car was still there when we returned. We decided to call the police to report the abandoned car. After getting off the phone with the police, we went inside the house to check on a few things. We were only inside for a couple of minutes. When we came back out, we noticed that the car was gone. Someone had to have been watching us while we were investigating
Yeah.
and decided to immediately take off when we went inside. The police never showed up that night, and we eventually left. Several weeks later, a dead body was discovered in the forest by the house. The person who found the body was a lady who was hiking through the area. There was a neighbor who told her about the body before she found it, but the neighbor had a reputation of being a mentally unstable drunk, and no one took him seriously. That was the rumor anyway. After the body was found, the police came out to do a report. One of the detectives took a statement from my dad. My dad said the detective acted strange and uninterested. I refused to believe that it was just a coincidence that we saw a parked car in that area, not long before that body was discovered. As far as my dad knows, they never followed up with the neighbor after the body was found. He had a conversation with him months after this happened, right before he sold off the house. The story gets even stranger. The hiker who found the corpse stated it looked like it hadn't been there for very long, meaning that it wasn't a rotting heap. She also noted that the head and hands had been removed. The police would later report that the body had been there for years. something tells me that that isn't true.
Right.
If the body had really been there for years, it would have been nothing but a pile of bones and rot. It just doesn't add up.
Decomposed.
It also makes me wonder what could have happened to me or my dad if we had found the driver of the car that day.
It sounds like the police in that area is on some dirt. They know what's going on.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. I'd like to give a big thanks to Nightmare Files for joining me in this video.
Hey.
If you want to hear more of his deep, menacing voice, be sure to head over to his channel. A link for that will be in the description. And make sure you tell him that Uncle Unit sent you. If you want your story to be featured on Based on True Events, send it over to the email you see on screen now. Until next time, I'm your Uncle Unit. And as always, never forget. There's always a reason to be afraid.
Man, like I said, those police in that last story, they was somehow connected what was going on, because they were disinterested. Like, no, unless they were just corrupt cops, or they're just so used to it happening they become desensitized. But no, there was some dirt being done. I guarantee you that. Real talk. Like I told y'all, I love when narrators and horror content creators that I watch and listen to so regularly collab. Man, it's always like a beautiful thing, man. It's always dope, man. When, you know, people, just like, you know, your favorite music artist or your favorite actor, when they, you know, work with other artists or other actors or whatever profession they're in, it's always such a good thing. Like, it's always so entertaining because there's a level of respect that comes with it. Like, you respect me and my talent, and I respect you and your talent. Let's put our forces together and create something, like, great. You know what I mean? So I definitely love when Unit 522, Nightmare Files, and, you know, all these guys, they collab with each other. It's always a good turnout. And definitely to my, you know, my Creepypasta boys, you know, my Creeps McPasta, Mr. Creepypasta, Creepypasta Jr., Mr. Creeps, all those guys, man. It's always dope, man. Shouts out to all of them. Thank you so much, guys, for watching my video. If you enjoyed the reaction, leave a like, a comment, and share the video. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel and tap that bell icon so you will get notified every time your boy Steph drop new content, which I do 7 times a week. That is all I got for y'all this time around. Your boy Steph is out.